Ooh.
Yeah.
We're back.
We're back.
We've been gone a long time. And everybody seems to have enjoyed what we left for them while we were away, which was
So people...
a mixture of kind of...
So, you know, it's not as much of a compliment as you imagine, is it?
Why?
People enjoyed you not being there, like, no?
Oh, I think everyone enjoyed us not being there, especially ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. It's about 2.5 weeks, I suppose.
But it feels like a lot longer.
Yeah.
Does it not?
It does, but it's really good to take a break. And we've already probably, by stepping away, you come back with bigger plans, I think. And that's
bigger plans.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had a little meeting there about the big plans we have for the coming months anyway. Very exciting times for Crime World. And we'll be expanding and doing a lot more stuff, is all we can say.
Stuff. Exactly.
How did you enjoy your holiday?
It was good. It was really good.
Should I say your holly bops?
My holly bops. Yeah, it was great. I was in Italy and really enjoyed that. And then I took a week off just at home.
What did you do when you were in Italy? Did you just sit on the beach and read?
I sat on the beach and read, really. And
then what happened at 1 o'clock?
What do you mean? For my lunch?
Yeah.
I have my lunch at my regular times, and I have my regular.
Would have been screwed up because you're an hour ahead.
No. Well, I adapt, but I have regular stuff over there.
And do you know where you go?
I know where I go. Yeah,
and you go to the same place every day.
Well, not necessarily every day, but I do have like I keep my options narrow.
So you have two places you eat.
Well, do you know what I did find, right? So I was in Italy, and then I had a week off, and I was thinking towards the end of Italy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home now. I'm going to do this in the house. I'm going to clean all of that. And then when I got home, didn't do any of it.
That's a lack of motivation.
Is it? Burned out?
Yeah, burnout.
So I spent the last few days in Italy thinking about the things I was going to do. And then I spent a week at home, my week off, scolding myself for not doing any of it.
And what did you do? Was the weather good when you were home?
The weather was good. So what I did, this is actually what happens to me. And this is why I'm probably better off being at work, because it was one day I woke up and I thought, my God, I'm nearly 50, and I had a little thing, and I'm thinking maybe I'm going to have a heart attack, because I'm definitely not a hypochondriac, am I?
No.
So and then I was thinking, what does it all amount to? And you know what I mean?
Christ.
And you know what? You
should be allowed go on holidays.
Exactly. I've 30% of my brain is worrying about you.
Yeah.
And I'd be better off worrying about work when I'm in work, because if I'm at home, I just start internally contemplating my existence.
Right. And what's it all about?
What's it all about and all that?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm glad to be back.
Mind. Yeah.
What about yourself?
I was in Italy earlier this summer.
Not tempted to do any internal contemplation.
What happens to me is, right, so I was in Italy earlier in the summer, and it was fabulous, lovely. And I came home from it thinking, oh my God, I'm going to go back by the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And then I had looked at flights, I had accommodation, sorted everything. And then it just went. I don't know where it all went. But anyway, I came back to work after that. And then I took 3 weeks nearly off.
Yeah.
And I was in Brussels for a wee while. Did a lot of day drinking there.
Did you?
Yeah. But only day drinking.
Yeah.
You know, you get to a certain stage that you can't do both. So you just do day drinking, then you stop.
Yeah. And not
early.
Go into bed for 9 o'clock. Like.
Watch a movie or something, and you know, maybe 9, maybe sometimes, yeah. And then you get up and you do it again. But I mean, that was that. And then I was home. But I have actually had for the last few weeks, my mother has builders in, and she's been staying with me.
Yeah.
So it's been quite amazing, because I get up in the morning and the dishwasher's emptied.
Oh, really?
The dog is gone.
Yeah.
They're out for a walk.
Yeah.
She obviously is on a different time zone to me and the rest of the family. But everybody's been fed.
Yeah.
Like proper meals and everything.
Yeah.
And my washing's been done. It's been quite amazing. Now she's unfortunately going because the builders are done and she's going home. But it's been a holiday in itself.
Yes. It sounds like just what you need from a life partner.
Like, it was just amazing. And I mean, I was able to go for cycles. I didn't have to, worry about. So that's it. So I've been sort of looked after by my mother. And trying to hang out with my kids has been difficult.
Has it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but not really kids, I suppose, anymore.
No, mine are teenagers and they were away with me, but they were, Yeah, they were great. Like, they were great as well. But yeah. They're at a certain age.
They're at a certain age. One of mine is away for the summer.
Yeah.
And the other is at home.
Yeah.
And we have plans at the beginning of the summer. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We've done nothing.
Yeah.
In actual fact, I burst into a room the other morning and said, could we go for breakfast? Because we haven't done anything all summer. And she just went, can you imagine lying in bed asleep and your mother coming in and top you and saying that?
But what sort of sleeping time? Like minor teenagers.
Oh,
like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, but they need more
amazing.
sleep.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
For what? Like, need more energy to
just
destroy their own rooms and all of that?
Yeah. And like to stare into their phone for longer periods of time and all
build
that.
Up a lot of... Yeah.
So, but it was all kind of unexciting. I had a good few days out, and I had very few. I was away a bit. I had visitors. I've had a nice time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I am back slightly refreshed.
Yeah.
Now, I've kept a little bit of an ear on the news, and then at the same time, I haven't. I've been trying to sort of keep away from all of it. But we have missed quite a lot.
We have. So, Sundayworld.com. Obviously, I get the data every day. So you get a breakdown of how many people read each story. It's incredible data that you get, because if you consider when we started working in newspapers, somebody just thought, that's a great story and that should go on page 1.
Yeah.
And it was all instinct. And often those instincts are right, but now you get to see what story does best, how many people.
What do you mean by that is who's reading it, how long they're reading it for.
Yeah, when they stop reading it.
Where they're from.
Where they're from. If you could go further into that, how they come across it. Did they come across it on social media? Did they log in? Did they type in sundayworld.com and look through and just decide which story they want to read? Or do they search on Google and come across the story? So there's loads and loads of data.
Mm-hmm.
So
I look bore us to tears of that.
No, I'm not. No, but I'm picked out the 6 of them.
Yeah.
6
over
crime stories from the week.
Okay, great.
We were away.
Yeah.
Or the 2 and a bit weeks anyway.
That were interesting people most.
Most. So what does it tell you? I don't know.
But so go on. Start with what was the top?
Well, the top story was Limerick Gang, the partner of Limerick Gang leader Kieran Keane Jr. Given 2 years to hand over her family home.
Right.
So Kieran Keane Jr., we've done podcasts on him before. His father, Kieran Keane, was infamously killed by members of the McCarthy-Dundon gang, including Desi Dundon, who's serving life sentence for the murder.
In a very famous double cross, when he thought he was going out actually to kill a rival's sons, but was instead met on the roadside by the McCarthy-Dundons, a murderous mob, and he was with his nephew Owen Tracy.
So one of probably the most, significant killing of the Limerick's feud. So Kieran Keane Jr. is his son. He's 36, and he has, in recent times, become a major target for the Criminal Assets Bureau. And he is now, we've heard in the evidence given to the cab case, that Kieran Keane Jr. is primarily living in Dubai. But we heard a great deal about the spending over a particular period of time that the Criminal Assets Bureau investigated. And why is there such interest in this story? I suppose it's because Kieran Keane Jr.'s partner, remains in Ireland. Laura Flanagan is her name.
She's not gone to Dubai. And sometimes the spending of the partners, the girlfriends of gangland criminals, is of huge interest to people's readers. Now, Laura Flanagan, I think I first wrote about her in 2010 when she was with Kieran Keane. At one point, she was tied up in her family home. It's suspected members of the McCarthy-Dundon gang had broken into the home, tied her up and attempted to get her to call her partner and even Christy Keane to come to the house. That's would be her partner's uncle.
Yeah, her partner's uncle. So, so we heard basically this is a family home, and, as these cab cases.
Where is it?
It's in Garryowen in Limerick. And I suppose as cab, the courts have agreed to give her 2 years to move out of the family home. She remains in, and the evidence given that she had been in a tempestuous relationship with Kieran Keane Jr. And that she's effectively a single mother. But you also heard from Cab some of the spending on the home. For example, according to the Criminal Assets Bureau, between 2009 and 2020, there was 696,000 from unknown sources of income
spent on that. That is a huge amount of money.
That was spent, I think, by the couple. But I think they're also talking about renovations of something like 285,000.
A lot of money.
Over a period of time. A huge amount of money. Kieran Keane Jr. has actually very little criminal convictions. But we've also heard evidence about some of his contacts, criminal contacts, including meeting with very serious criminals from Dublin, from Finglas, people like Greg Lynch. Mm-hmm. So he's regarded as being a very significant figure in gangland crime in Limerick. Why that story does well, I'd say it's partly because Laura Flanagan's such an attractive,
glamorous, modelly looking type
and she
girl.
runs a beauty salon, a very successful beauty salon.
So is it her or him that's of the interest in that story? I wonder.
A bit of both.
A bit of both, yeah. It's that kind of idea of this sort of glamorous, sort of mall type character, and also like Kieran Keane as described by Cab as being a very significant player, not merely somebody that's incidental. Just as you're talking about Dubai, can we just hold on that for a second before we go back to the other stories that have interested people since we've been off? But so we have Dubai, right? We have Sean McGovern back in custody, and we must make some calls and see how all that is going when he's back up in court again. So he's back extradited, which seemed like a huge wrench. It was like, an elephant's pregnancy to try and get him home, okay? And we had to send out our then Garda chief, Drew Harris, who's standing down. Of course, we have a new chief coming in, Justin Kelly. But, we seem to have had to do everything the United Arab Emirates required to get him back. And he's not our big fish. Daniel Kinahan is still there, and we're still hoping to bring him back. And, next February coming is the 10-year anniversary of the Regency Hotel Assault, which is really what started this huge investigation into the Kinahan mob from Ireland and started that hunt for Daniel Kinahan, didn't it? And all the rest of it. So we're 10 years in coming. Yeah. Right? Now, the MoscowTimes.com, which is an independent publication looking for help with its finances, tells us that the former chief executive of a Russian state-run leasing company was arrested in Dubai's largest shopping centre in a rare extradition operation carried out by Russian intelligence, exiled investigations outlet The Insider has reported, right? Yeah. So this guy, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, Salavayayal. He's arrested at Dubai Mall, and they literally lifted him.
So the
Russians went in.
Yeah.
They lifted him.
Yeah.
And they've flown him back to Moscow.
Yeah.
Because they wanted him, and that's how they operate. So there's a bit of a difference with little old Ireland, isn't it, in the relationship with the United Arab Emirates?
And of course, it's not just the Russians that have done that. The Americans have done that in parts of Central America and South America as well. Now,
they, of course, have done it, particularly in Mexico, etc., and they've done it with the agreement of the governments, mainly.
Mostly.
And, while working with the military in those countries. But this seems to be, I don't know, your man is walking around the mall, presumably buying his nth, Rolex watch or whatever it is, or browsing in the Dior shop, and here he gets lifted. And the Russians are just low onto themselves, aren't they?
They are. I suppose Simon Harris can't threaten Dubai with our nuclear weapon arsenal, can they?
No. And of course, anyway, so that was just a little aside, and we will be coming back, of course, in much greater detail to where we're at with all of that investigation, to where we're at with the upcoming trial of Sean McGovern, and where we're at with the ongoing efforts to extradite Daniel Kinahan.
Yes.
Now, another story I think that has been very big over the last couple of weeks is this tragic death of Martha Nolan O'Slattery.
Yeah.
She's an Irish, very attractive looking designer who was found dead on a yacht, basically in New York, in an area, Montauk, up in sort of East Hampton, which is, anyone who doesn't know much about the Hamptons is the playground of the very rich New York Manhattan set, who many of whom have holiday homes in the Hamptons worth, pick a figure, $50 million, whatever, and they will, decamp there for the summer. And of course, there's a big community of millionaires who own yachts.
Yeah.
And it was on one of these yachts that this Irish woman was found dead. Now, it's been investigated by police over there, and I think her poor mother and sister have had to go out now to try and organise the repatriation of her body back. It's still a bit mysterious about what is it that has occurred, but one way or another, the alert was sounded after midnight. She had spoken to her partner on the phone to say she was out and she was getting an Uber home, and chaos seemed to have ensued. She was seen on the boat, or she was obviously discovered on the boat dead.
I mean, it's a very, very tragic story, and it has been very, very big news in the US. In particular, the New York Post, the tabloid newspaper over based in New York, has covered it very, very extensively. Partly because, I suppose, because she's a good-looking young woman, but also because of where it occurred. As you said, is it's one of the more exclusive places in the US, somewhere that these things don't happen every day. Now, obviously, when a young woman dies in those circumstances, instantly there's always a fear that there's violence involved, but that has really been quickly ruled out by the police.
There's no signs of a struggle or violence or anything like that.
No.
But the cause of death is still unexplained.
Yeah, and obviously the family have hired a lawyer, and they have been unhappy with some of the leaking, as they describe it, and some of the two media outlets over there. And they are looking for...
So have certain stories run in the US that we haven't...
Certain stories have run in the US.
Run here.
Yeah, and basically they're saying people have to wait for the toxicology reports and to see what comes out.
And those toxicology reports can often take quite a long time. They can take weeks.
Yeah, and also the family are looking for a second opinion autopsy on the results. So it's still... they're maybe not happy with some of what has happened.
So whose yacht was she on, and what was happening around this?
She was on a yacht, a boat called Ripple, and it's owned by a guy called Christopher P. Durnan, and he's a businessman. I think he's in his 60s, and he is somebody who, I think he was involved in insurance, made a lot of money. I don't know, they're talking about a multi-millionaire.
I mean, these people, like people who frequent the Hamptons, are in the top whatever percentage, 1% of the richest of the rich people. I mean, they will have with them on these holidays, be it on their yacht or in their private villas, staff. The staff will travel with them. They have nannies, they have cooks, this is wealth beyond anybody's wildest dreams, and it's usually in real estate and the likes of big business.
Yeah, and obviously, Marta Nolan O'Slather was over in the US. I think she had done an interview actually with the Irish Independent a couple of years ago, talking about running she was a fashion designer.
Yeah,
she'd been involved in the world of fashion, and she'd basically studied at UCD, but ultimately relocated to the US and had been making a really good go of things over there. Had been very high profile on social media. A young woman who seemed to be living the absolute dream, which a lot of people would have looked up to. So a very, very sad story, but cases like this, there's obviously been a huge interest in.
We should linger on that for a second, because you talk about the clicks, and you talk about, we now can see exactly what people are interested in, how long they're reading, what they're engaging for. We are very visual creatures, human beings, which is why sometimes a good-looking young person, be they a male or female, can capture our attention. This is a classic story, isn't it? Do you think the New York Post would be interested in this if it had happened elsewhere? How many people just die suddenly, unexplained deaths in the States, in the New York area? Hazard a guess on that. There's so much violent death out there. There's so much unreported crime and unexplained deaths in the States. National media, which I think the New York Post would be deemed to be, although it's very tabloid, would often not even run a story about a serial killer because there's, they can be 10 a penny.
Yeah.
So like to actually hit the national headlines in the States is mega. And I suppose there is that voyeuristic thing with this girl's death, isn't there? She's in fashion, she's in the Hamptons, she's on a millionaire's yacht.
Yeah.
She's died in unexplained circumstances with no health complications that are known of.
Yeah, look, it's very hard for her family. They're an ordinary family.
And you can understand they'd be trying to protect her and her memory.
Yes, of course. And the reality is they've had to hire solicitors. The solicitors engaging with the media, because if somebody doesn't engage with the media, certain narratives can come out. And all of that is very difficult for families to do. But of course, you're right. I mean, why is, it's a story that's of interest because I suppose the circumstances around it, there'll probably be 10 or 20 women dying in unexplained deaths in New York in the same time this story has come out.
But I mean, even I'm in media, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ireland is so different, the way we will report on things to the States. A friend of mine died in tragic circumstances in the States a few years ago, and the headlines were horrific to the extent that I spent a day on the phone trying to get on to journalists, editors of media organizations. Now, it was a little bit like trying to stick your finger in a dam because, of course, a lot of media organizations now are just lifting and headlining and copying, and this is by the nature of this sort of monster which is online media, the internet. People are lifting, so the story is repeated and repeated and repeated. It pops up in one place and you kind of eventually get on. And actually I had quite a good experience with those people that I did talk to, and they listened to me and they took on board what I was saying about how disrespectful and wrong, in particular, the headlines were in this regard. And it was to try and sensationalise completely a story, and it would not have been something that would have happened here.
No, I mean, I suppose it is. Look, I mean, it's
so it makes it extra difficult, is what I mean. Like, you know what I mean? If a death like this had occurred in Ireland, there wouldn't be that kind of reporting around it.
No, it'd be much less likely. And of course, people will think of examples where that hasn't been true. But I mean, it'd be much less likely. But yeah, it's a difficult situation for a family in that circumstance because most families will have this instinct to just have nothing to do with the media, not engage with anything, to just say nothing, have nobody speak on their behalf. I think that's the
unless they're looking for information or they need, you know what I mean? They need the public to come forward to. But this has obviously happened within. I mean, there will be no ultimate mystery when the reports etc. come back.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Very difficult for a family then, because, I suppose you're dipping into a moment in time.
Yeah.
For somebody.
Yeah.
So that is anyway, it is something that is drawing interest here as well, even though the reporting I think here is a lot more dignified for the family, etc.
It is, but it's look, it's just these stories that that's been aggregated, as they call it, all over the world, and it's appeared in a lot of publications all over the world. It's one of those things. Of course, like the other guys. Yeah,
back home, Coffee and crime.
Coffee and crime. So another story that did really well, a crime story, was I suppose a follow-up on a story we had done previously about two major figures in the Kinahan cartel, or at least former members of the Kinahan cartel, Dean Howe and Liam Brannigan. Last year, I think we published a story about how they'd come out of prison, they'd served lengthy sentences for their roles in murder plots as part of the Hutch Kinahan feud, let's put it that way. And they've served their time and they've come back out. And it's good to see, I suppose you could say, that they got into another line of business, even though it was cheekily referred to as also being, having a link to Colombia, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Because they were running a coffee shop in the Liberties. And this follow-up story was just about Dean Howe, how he has basically registered a new venture operating at a different address in Dublin 8. Dean Howe would have been, I think he is a cousin of Liam Byrne. He would have been somebody who grew up in the middle of the Crumlin-Drimnagh feud. That family connection would have mean that he would have been considered part of that Fat Freddy organisation, I suppose. And he would have grown up with Liam Byrne, David Byrne, Freddie Thompson, all of those guys that went on to become so notorious as part of that feud. Dean Howe ultimately would have ended up in prison. Liam Brannigan, again, would have been a cousin of Freddie Thompson.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had major convictions before going to prison for this conspiracy to murder plot. But Liam Brannigan would have been somebody who I think was quite close to Daniel Kinahan.
So Liam Brannigan's an interesting enough character, isn't he? Because he had actually kind of a different trajectory than the others. He attended UCD?
Well, he did. I think he in the middle attended UCD.
Yeah.
So he would have grown up with them. He would have been linked to them all through that Crumlin-Drimnagh feud. He would have been a top target for Gardaí at some point. And then at some point he seems to have gone back to UCD and studied, I think it was archaeology.
Okay.
He seemed to have taken a break in the middle.
Archaeology is an odd one, isn't it?
Well, why not?
Yeah. I can't imagine there being a huge amount of employment in it.
Well, look, it's maybe, I don't know if that's...
It's maybe just a personal interest he
maybe
has
a personal interest, but I think he, certainly at some point, he went back to UCD and maybe tried a different avenue of life. But by the time the Hutch Kinahan feud was up and running, he had certainly been sucked back, right back into
it. Do you remember there was a boxing event in City West and Daniel Kinahan was at it. It was a kind of I won't say what it was because I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
But we were certainly there because we believed that we were going to see members of the Kinahan outfit. And sure enough, Brannigan was there right up beside Daniel Kinahan at the time and in his ear and very close to him, obviously.
Very close.
Which was not a position many were in because Kinahan had already kind of put himself, levels up in the hierarchy.
Yeah. I think that was 2015. So it was in advance of the Regency, obviously. But it was certainly at a time where when MGM, I think it would have been at that stage, were running these events or what ultimately become MTK. Daniel Kinahan would have openly been there, and at times, maybe not in Ireland, but certainly at other ones of these boxing events, he would be in the ring and everything with the fighters.
But Brannigan later, during the court case that was around this conspiracy to murder, was the one on the phone to Daniel Kinahan directly from Dublin.
Yeah, certainly now Daniel Kinahan wasn't using his own name, but that is certainly the belief that he was the contact, and that
he was certainly describing conversations he had with Dan.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was actually describing how Dan was looking for a bit
D as well at
maybe
some point.
D.
Yeah.
But he was looking for a bit of, what was the word?
Bit of strange.
He was looking for a bit of strange. The first time I'd ever heard of that phrase, being so closeted as I am in my little bubble. But a bit of strange was obviously he was looking for a woman or something like this. But that was read out during that court case, the conversation he'd had. But it definitely came across that he was the link to Kinahan. So that was a friendship that was stronger than many. Not many people were on the phone to him.
No, and a lot of people, Daniel certainly had a reputation, and certainly his father did as well, of not bothering with some of these guys who we would call Kinahan cartel members, but they would
just see them as soldiers or underlings.
Yeah, not to be even talked to.
So the coffee shop, what do we feel?
Well, we feel that if we're...
There's money in coffee.
There's money in coffee, legitimate
Colombia's
money.
second greatest
some might
product.
Some might say coffee prices are a crime in themselves.
They sure are.
But look, people served periods in time, lengthy periods.
And as a population, we really love our coffee too.
We really love our coffee. Yeah.
Sometimes you go into towns and you see.
Yeah, you have to wonder is there enough for people buying everything?
You do.
But there's no sense, sometimes you hear of people running businesses and we'll hear whispers that these businesses are a front, but you're not hearing that in this case.
Yeah.
And so you have to...
But sure, maybe we should ask them.
Yeah, and you have to allow people, if we live in a country that allows the possibility of rehabilitation. So let's hope.
All right, go on. Now, always in the news and the headlines is Conor McGregor. So when we were kind of finishing up, the appeal decision was back.
Yeah.
Nikita Hand has launched a new civil case against him.
Yes.
In relation to these witnesses that were kind of described but never brought forward in the appeals case. Then black smoke was coming out of the Black Forge pub. And that was really the end of my memory. It's like as if I woke up then and I can't remember what happened since. But there was some rumours around involvement of some dissidents in that, and possibly, they were kind of moving in on him. Why, by the way? What was the reason for that?
Well, the reason was that...
and they were rumours, of course.
They were rumours, incorrect rumours.
Incorrect, yeah.
But ultimately, an INLA-linked organisation, let's put it that way, had put up a post on social media talking about antisocial behaviour and far-right gangsters operating in Crumlin.
Had they claimed responsibility for it? Or
no, they said they'd put this up in advance of the fire,
claiming
that they were going to target these people. They had been targeting people and they would continue to, and there was pictures of guys with guns.
And did they name Conor McGregor?
No, they didn't name Conor McGregor.
So this was really putting 2 and 2 together and getting 75.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it didn't appear to that. Obviously, ultimately a man was arrested. Now, a lot of people will have some knowledge of this, but we cannot, we can't go into the details other than to say, this man was arrested in connection with this fire in the Black Forge, which ultimately wasn't particularly serious. Certainly, this wasn't some sort of well thought out crime. It appears that his face is visible on CCTV cameras. But the individual was arrested by the Special Detective Unit. The Special Detective Unit probably isn't in the media as much as it once would have, but the Special Detective Unit look at terrorist organisations in Ireland. Traditionally, they were the branch of the Gardaí who targeted Republicans, really. But they also target people involved in Islamic, suspected of being involved in Islamic terrorism. And this person who's been arrested, he was arrested in prison. He was suspected of involvement in another high-profile violent crime, and Gardaí are looking into his links to Islamic extremism. Let's put it that way. So he was arrested, but ultimately released, and the investigations will continue. There's always the Conor McGregor.
Is he just on his hollybops?
Conor McGregor's been around, yeah.
Still, is he?
He was also, I think he was most recently in Italy.
Oh, and of course he's been. What's happening with his non-happening presidential candidacy?
Still tweeting about it.
Still tweeting away, and he's still hoping that one of the councils, is he actually actively looking for a council to give him the votes?
I'm not fully sure, but I did see somebody saying that they haven't received any contact with him. But obviously, it is hard to get on to the nomination. You can either get 4 county councils or 20 members of the Oireachtas. So I'd be surprised if he does get on. But he continues to tweet away about it. So another story that did well, and so you can see Conor McGregor. They'll always, there's huge interest in Conor McGregor, but there's other types of stories sometimes that do well, are the quirky ones. So I thought this was a funny one. It was about an Irish guy. Actually, stories of Irish people behaving badly abroad are always popular. But there was a story put out about a guy called Michael Connors who he'd been linked to, he's an Irishman, an Irish national with a passport, and he'd been linked to alleged home repair scams, which there's been a huge amount of publicity actually in
Australia.
Of Irish people doing these where they call into homes. And
of course, our expert on all of that is Eamon Dillon, who regularly describes how these sort of gangs are organised, very organised, very well travelled,
very slick and get it done, and they move across the globe. I mean, incredible amounts of reports through the US, Canada, Australia, even in Africa, even all through Europe. But anyway, this guy was arrested because he'd been arrested, put in detention, and he'd managed to escape by tying a load of bed sheets together and scaling down the side of a building.
A high security prison, clearly.
But I suppose it probably can't have been.
Or a police station, was it?
Well,
so he had the bed sheets, so he was obviously in some sort of custody situation.
He was in some sort of custody situation. They don't get into great details.
That's like something you'd see in a cartoon.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Tying bed sheets together and scaling down the side of a building.
Now, I think he'd been charged with entering Australia on a false passport. And he's ultimately now been charged with escaping from custody. But yeah, it's an old cartoon escape.
Yeah.
And he'd used, according to police, Mr. Connors had used a variety of false names, including Craig O'Neill, Michael O'Brien, John Cash, Carl George Lynch, and Joseph Blythe Kennedy.
That's quite posh, isn't it?
That's quite
Joseph
posh.
Blythe Kennedy.
Posh, yeah.
So, and another story, I suppose we finish on this one that was interesting, people. But this is something that we will be coming back to a lot, and it's to do with debt collection.
Yes,
and money owed and people buying others' debts. So, a plumber and a guy called Stephen McGuinness from Tarmanbarry in Roscommon was convicted and fined $1,500 in Longford District Court for his part in an incident that saw he basically sent a text to somebody who owed him money for $1,400, for works he'd carried out. And he sent this threat to this client on Christmas Eve, and he said that he'd passed on the debt, the €1,400 bill, to a Dublin-based crime gang, and told the individual, "If I ever see you locally again, God help you. Happy Christmas, you English bastard."
Yeah. And he also,
why do we laugh at that bit?
Well, I don't know. It's just,
well, you do.
No,
800 years of oppression.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
But and then he also followed it up with another text, because it was Christmas time, saying it was a nice time of the year to remind cunts like you of your position in society.
Right.
So
now, he might have had a few scoops on board, this gentleman.
He might have had, and I mean, obviously, for subcontractors not getting paid is something that But
whether or not this occurred is not the point.
Whether
it's really that this can occur, and debts owed can be given over to debt collection agencies, often that can be manned by serious criminals. And often criminal gangs will buy debts and will collect them with force.
Yeah, and it's become a huge issue, of course, across Irish society. And we're seeing more and more cases coming to court. Some of this may have been bluster in this case, but that whole side of the business has been something that has been escalating. I mean, using violence to collect debts is as old as as time itself, I would imagine. But there's been a real escalation, and we've seen this in a number of cases that have come before the courts, where the level of violence used, which stops short usually of fatality, but the level of violence used is extreme, and we've seen this across. Europol actually put out a press release this week about it's basically about violence to order, how there's these organisations are now existing.
Let's talk about that further actually later in the week, because it is very interesting. But basically, like on a very simplistic level, what will happen is you can have either sort of companies or individual groupings that will buy a debt. Say you're owed $1,400. They will buy that debt from you, for example, $250. So the individual gets something back when they're not likely to get anything back out of the money they're owed, or they don't believe they are. The grouping or the individual will then go and start putting the heavy on the person that owes the money. And you can be damn sure it won't be $1,400, the actual bill at the end of it all.
No.
That'll be the start of it.
That'll be the start of it.
It's a nightmare for everybody concerned.
And
some criminal gangs have their own in-house sort of fully employed enforcers, but others don't and they will subcontract it out again to somebody else.
So there's basically freelance debt collectors, like not official debt collectors, who will go around the country, and they will. That serves two purposes. I mean, if you're landing in somewhere in the Midlands and you're from Dublin, you've no connection with anybody, and you come and collect a debt, your chances of being caught are much less. You're not likely to be recognised by any of the witnesses. But it's become a big business. And we saw it, of course, in the Barry Young case. Partly the reason we saw that is because he had his 18,000 texts or whatever on WhatsApp were undisguised. But we see that is the way it is working. Now, people obviously use this threat to try and collect debts themselves. But we've seen a couple of really, really shocking cases, including a case that was highly publicised in Henrietta Street in Dublin, where a woman was subjected to this horrific torture session, which we may go back into again. But it's the violence. This is the violence that underpins the criminality in Ireland, and it's an increasing problem, and it's something the guards have recognised as an increasing problem as well, and have been forced to launch specialist units to try and tackle it.
So that's what people have been spending their time engaging with.
That's it.
While we've been off kicking up.
Yeah.
Do you watch any good movies?
I watched White Lotus when I was away.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. Really good.
I did a few kind of big movie nights.
Oh, did you?
The Casino.
Oh, yeah, which is great.
Yeah, going back over those great films. Yeah. And there was another film I was advised to watch, and I did, called The Lion of the Desert with Oliver Reed.
I saw it, yeah.
Very interesting.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so he's, fighting in Libya against the Italians, and, they've come in and they're trying to quell the Bedouins. They're trying to destroy the Bedouins. It's actually interesting because it's very much like what's happening in Gaza now, and they're like locking them all in concentration camps. They just want the land, which is desert and kind of worthless, but they want it for pride because it should be Italy's. And he's the kind of the resistance fighter, the Lion of the Desert. But it's a great movie, actually. It was made in the 1980s, and it was funded, interestingly, by Gaddafi.
Oh, really?
Because there's a little child in the film that sort of appears during very significant events and violent events, and the child sort of, I think the message is the child was one of the children of Libya that would have gone on then to ultimately, arm the IRA in their struggle here. And ultimately you have great support from Ireland to Palestine. It's just history repeats itself.
Well, do you know what else I watched? I'm rewatching The Wire, believe it or not.
Love it.
And it's brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
But it's great. So I was wondering, would it stand up, because the technology is so different, right? It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But I just got through this, the end of season 2, which is finished, and there's an incredible scene at the end of it where they've obviously been up on the phones.
Yeah.
It just shows you how the world changes. At some point, they start telling each other what a text message is.
Really?
Because obviously, when it was made, was it the late 90s, or
it must have been.
People didn't send text messages.
Really?
And one of the detectives, Bunk, I think it is describing, saying, my kids are doing these things, text messages all the time.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, at that stage, people didn't realise that, like, text messaging.
I remember we went.
People were going to have a whole generation who would never answer a phone.
We went on a holiday one year to Inchydonny, and we arrived in what was an apartment on the beach, basically in the hotel, and got in. The kids were small, and they ran around the back of the television going, what is this? Because it wasn't flat screen. It was one of those boxy things.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is, like, because I thought that was so funny to see them do that they had only seen a flat screen TV when the big box, they were kind of around the back of it. What is this thing here?
But it's incredible.
But you talk about The Wire.
Yeah.
So the other end of that was I was dug into and watched it all in one big binge. The Channel 4 documentary on EncroChat.
Somebody sent it on to me. I will watch it.
Now you watch it and let's get on and just, because it's my favourite topic.
Okay.
And it's incredible because it's covering the worldwide, investigation. And anybody, out there watching or listening to this that are interested in EncroChat, get on the Channel 4 player and watch this. It's really, really interesting. It's the NCA wing of it. So it's the National Crime Agency in England and what they did and how they went after. And they're recreating these chats that are occurring, and they're showing sort of dramatization about how some of these really significant characters got themselves caught by exactly taking selfies and all this sort of stuff, or getting caught in, and how they started to identify who was who from the handles. But it's fascinating, and we should talk about it. But there's a constant map, used in the background, and you can see all the communications going every which way coming out of England. And amazingly, they only go to the north of Ireland.
Yeah,
there's no communication with the Republic because there was nobody here, we were told, who had an encrophone, and yet we know very different now.
Yeah.
So you watch that, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it again, and I can have another whinge,
another
rant about Encro. But I mean, it's interesting because they do describe it as like the biggest kind of, significant win against organised crime in the century.
But if you look at it and you look back at The Wire, although
it's where it all started.
But you can just see, the technology keeps changing.
Yeah.
But the struggle remains the same.
Yeah.
It starts off on beepers and pagers.
I had a pager.
Yeah. But that's all. It's still
no one ever contacted me on it.
There's a technological arms race where the police, the criminals start first, and then the police try and catch up. But the criminals, they need digital communications
always
to operate, and fascinating. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. Right. Okay. Well, look, we'll do all that, and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of those things more in detail. Yes, I think the attack on that girl is something that we should definitely go through. Some of this debt collecting, some of these, people that are wrongly identified as owing debts and all the rest of it. We'll come back to all that, and keep the questions coming in. We are going to do a Q&A tomorrow. But keep them coming in on our social media channels and give us as much feedback. Oh, and as they say on other podcasts, they say thank you. So thank you for listening. And they say, if you like what you're listening or watching, click to subscribe, because we are on a mission, aren't we?
Yeah.
We want to hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we've been counting away, and it's like, I really would like, is it possible we can get there by Christmas?
Well, you have to aim high.
Please press the subscribe button for me, and let's see how many we can get. Because if you do, you have to always aim high in life.
You have to aim high in life, or else you'd be lying in your bed contemplating.
And sure, if it doesn't happen by Christmas, I'll go back in the new year and go, please hit the subscribe button. I want to hit it this year. Yeah. So 75,000 subscribers. We want the 100,000. I want that 6-figure.
You get a little trophy, I think, as well.
Do you?
I think so, yeah.
From YouTube?
Trophy. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so exciting. I'm having that. Okay. So look,
we'll
be back.
Subscribe. Thank you very much.
We are back.
Yes.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.